if they're not your keys, they're not your coins, there is no call center, no help desk if things go wrong or you lose your backup. Joining us today, we have Chris from Seedor. Chris, why is it so important to back up our Bitcoin seed phrase on something other than paper?
So as you mentioned, there is no hotline. You can't call up Satoshi and say, dude, where's my coin? And paper, funny story, is not a very good store of information because, I mean, it can bleach, it can get wet, it can burn. Personally, I had the experience where we had a flood in Germany and the entire cellar of my house was flooded. And in that process, I lost my birth certificate, which is just like a piece of DIN A4 paper. And it was quite the process to get that renewed. I had to literally go with my mother to the, how do you call it, mayor's office, like similar to that in Germany. And she had to vouch that this guy came out of her so that they would renew my birth certificate. So in that moment, I realized paper is a good offline store, so don't store your seed phrase in the cloud, but steel is just much more durable. It will survive a house fire, it will survive flooding, corrosion, stuff like that. And that's the only information you'll ever have to save in order to restore anything in Bitcoin.
Yep. You guys have a product, cold, hard German steel. We'll get into the Seedor in a sec, which is absolutely amazing. But you're doing some other exciting things as well with SatsKeeper and TerraHash. Before we dive into the seed phrase, into German steel and stuff, this is a different product. Can you tell us what SatsKeeper is and then TerraHash, please?
All right. Okay. So SatsKeeper is the next step. Like with Seedor, you store your private key, that information locally with you. But what happens in the event if you get hit by the bus or if you die unexpectedly? Would you right now say, Sean, that your next of kin, your heir, is capable of recovering your funds? Or would you say that once you're gone, like everybody who is in Bitcoin is richer because your Bitcoin are taken out of circulation forever? And we thought, let's build something like an inheritance plan. We help you, we guide you through. We have a free tool where you step by step save offline information about where do you store your coins, what wallets do you use. You do not provide any private keys to us. We just give you a tool to encrypt a file, and then we offer proof of life checks so that we will send you an email every 6 months. And if you do not respond, then we would contact an heir or a safety person that you have nominated, and then we would provide that encrypted file, and you would have then beforehand given that person the password to unencrypt that. And then we would also offer the heir the assistance to recover your funds without, again, ever touching any of those keys. We would just guide them through, and you could be of sound mind or rest easy that your Bitcoin will get into the hands of your loved ones.
So that's SatsKeeper inheritance planning. And what about TerraHash?
So TerraHash is a new project that we launched in December. I'm on the advisory board, and there is many, many bright people. I would say the brightest people in Bitcoin in Germany, because Bitcoin is, we are quite early. I mean, it's a trope to say we're early, but like after 14 years, it's still a very hard sell in Germany to make Bitcoin, let's say it's a German word, salonfähig, to make it appreciated by everybody, not just the hardcore cypherpunks or like the nerds that are into it right now. And we are figuring out how to, not only the educational part in Germany about Bitcoin, but also the energy and the mining part. Because if you think about Bitcoin mining, you're thinking about like Kazakhstan, you're thinking about the United States, you're thinking about like places where there's cheap electricity, or like in the United States where the grid is very open. And in Germany, if you were to mine a Bitcoin by purchasing your electricity, you would have to pay around 170,000 euros per Bitcoin. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What does make sense though, and with the halving coming up next year, is figuring out now, or as early as possible, how to use every single bit of energy that you put into the process of mining Bitcoin Next year, everybody will have to figure out a way how to use the stranded heat that you're generating, not just cooling the mining rigs, but using that heat in an industrial process to make it more profitable, because the block reward will be halved. Like the Coinbase will be like 3.125 Bitcoin, and the energy costs are not, might be rising. You're not entirely sure what the markets will bring, but in Germany we figured out that we can approach big industry players that already have a demand for heat in their manufacturing. For instance, like if you're injection molding, or if you're like a brewery, some type, they need heat anyways. They would manufacture heat by burning energy. Why not just also mine Bitcoin, have another revenue stream? And we can do that calculation, and we with TerraHash try to figure out solutions, black boxes, where we're not saying put Bitcoin mining into your process, but we will bring you a Bitcoin data center, and in turn you will become more profitable. And if you have your own electricity, like your photovoltaic utilities, then this is a very interesting thing even in Germany. And that's what we do with TerraHash.
That's so exciting. I want everyone watching to keep TerraHash and both SatsKeeper in their mind, but I want to talk about this cold hard German steel there. This is a little bit different. This is just a stainless steel plate where people can put 24 words on there. But you guys at Seedor have come up with a different option. I did ask if you have got one close. So if you can show us what your solution is. And I've got a couple of questions to ask. So how about you show us each thing, what's in the box? Maybe start with the big hammer.
So that's a big hammer. Because if you emboss stainless steel, you're gonna need a big hammer. You will hit steel more than once, and every blow then will emboss the letter more legible. And we initially, when we designed the product, thought, do we need to add a hammer? Everybody has a hammer. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. My business partner, Ayhan, is a civil engineer. We have tools, but then talking to friends, in case they had a hammer, the hammer was like 150 grams, and that is not enough. You can put a nail in the wall, put up a picture, but with this hammer, like, we needed to give you the big tool, so it's also easy. You're not like hurting yourself. That's this part. Then we have an injection molded holding device that sits on this type of anvil. And in this anvil, you would then place a stainless steel disc that is stored in the safe capsule. And if you have a disc in here, you go with your letter punch set. There's like letters A to Z and numbers 0 to 8. And then you would emboss first the number and then the full word on one disc. That is also something that differentiates us from all the other products, because with a BIP 39 standard, it's customary to only save the first 4 letters, because the first 3 or 4 letters of all those 2048 seed words, they are not overlapping. And to me, that's insane to create a backup that supposedly, or like, your intention is to have something that lasts generations, and why would you then just only save the first 4 letters of a seed word when a seed word is like between 3 and 8 letters? And of course it's redundant information, but on these small plates where you maybe use like a letter punch, where you put dots in, or where you don't have that much space, they only ever store the first couple letters. And what many people do not know, there's more than the BIP 39 seed word standard. There's, of course, we have these older Electrum and legacy type standards, but there's SLIP 39, which Trezor uses for their Shamir backups. There is the AE seed standard, which also use the BIP 39 words, but they're derived differently. And you can, depending on which wallet you use, have a different derivation path. So we tried to figure out how to put all this information in the most compact way. And with Seedor, you get more disks than you need. You would store not just the 24 words or 12 words, but on those disks you could add not just a passphrase, but like the date, the derivation path, what kind of seed scheme you're using, because we think redundant information is good. Even if like a backup is for like some reason damaged, your heirs will be happy to have like as much information as possible. They're not going to be angry and think like, Sean, why did you put more than 4 letters? You know, you don't need that much. And that's why in every design step we thought, how do we, like we've seen all these other steel backs. And if you have a steel back up already, that's great because everything is better than paper again. But this, to me personally, is the best solution that synthesizes all the other good things from the other products, and that's Seedor.
Yep. So one thing, Chris, and for everyone watching, this is just a steel plate, and it says 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 24 on there. With your thing, they're little discs. What happens if they come apart and the discs go everywhere, and now all the words, you don't know which word is which if all the discs get mixed up?
So I can show you that. We have, of course, store the position, because that is not just you need not only the seed words, but also the position. You would start out when embossing the seed, putting on the first disc 01, then 02, then 03, and then store all the letters, so that even if it comes apart and all those discs fall out, you can still reassemble the seed phrase. Again, as much information as possible. And you can store more than one seed in this capsule, but then you would also have to space like the lettering apart. So you say this is 01 to 12, and this is then maybe 31 to 42 or something. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So if it was to break, people would just go 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 24, get those words, it's back in order again.
Exactly. So like you store the information whichever way you want, and in this manual, which surprisingly nobody reads, because initially I mentioned these letter punches, they come A to Z and 0 to 8, and every week I get at least one email, dude, where's my 9? And then I say, if you go on page 9 of the manual, you just rotate the 6. And then people are embarrassed usually because it's obvious, because instead of the 9 we added the ampersand, like the and symbol. Because if you have a passphrase, you maybe want to add like a symbol to increase the difficulty to brute force it.
Well, why did you and why did Seedor get together and make this option for the market?
That's a good question. Like initially I mentioned the story where I lost my birth certificate, but long before that I also had like steel backups where I went into the hardware store, got a plate of aluminium, and with a nail scratched in seed words, and I thought, oh, really, really good backup. However, aluminium, like again, better than paper, but melts quite low and melting temperature. But I'm by trade, I'm a mechanical engineer, I'm a material scientist. I think Bitcoin is really neat. It's a great technology. I want to contribute, but I'm too dumb to write a line of code. Like I can't write any open source software, and I thought, what can I contribute? And as a material scientist, I know the properties of metal and steel, and it was important to me to create a backup where the outer casing, the capsule, as well as the discs are made from the exact same alloy. And if you go to the hardware store and if you buy washers and if you buy a bolt, you're not sure if it's the same stainless steel. Maybe it's zinc plated, maybe it's V4A, V2A, different products. It will be still okay, but if it's like in a water solution, or if it's like exposed, if you like bury it in the garden, different metals with different electric potentials will then have something called galvanic corrosion, and you can entirely lock this out if you just use the very same steel. And so that's why this is an entire custom-made part, and that is my contribution because I'm too dumb to write code.
That's absolutely amazing, mate. And I'd say you're bloody clever and a genius to be able to do what you're good at. And I had a conversation with someone earlier today that talks about people. The video is Amy Taylor, be you and get paid, but someone that's telling people to do what they're good at and then contribute from your level experience, which is what you're doing. Something actually that I think is really cool is it's this little trolley key that you showed me before we started recording. It's just a cool story, man. Can you
Yeah.
dive into it?
So this is just a brass trolley key. So in Europe, and we checked earlier, you also have this in Australia. They don't trust us with the shopping carts. We have to put in like the lump sum of €1 or €2. And this is a shopping cart cracker. You put it in and you can take it out and can release as many as you want. Because we want to, in a hyper-Bitcoinized world, like the only downside is you're not going to have a physical coin anymore. And then we want to remove the entire fiat from your wallet, and that's why we sell this as a small tool. And this is manufactured in China, and the part is it's just brass that is then embossed like this sort of commemorative coin. It's our logo and then the Bitcoin logo. And when I was researching companies, I never worked with like a Chinese company there that does this thing. And I found somebody who struck me as competent, and we got to talking, and then, oh, it's a Bitcoin logo. Oh, you know Bitcoin, you like Bitcoin. And if you do business with China and you do a telegraphic wire transfer from Germany, it takes ages. And Bitcoin is officially like prohibited in China. But if you take the conversation from Alibaba to WeChat, like they're very happy to take your Bitcoin. And the fantastic thing is, if I wire something like with my bank, it goes from Germany to Luxembourg to Singapore, and then Jack Ma, the owner of Alibaba, takes 8% for trade assurance, and then it takes like at least 3 days. If there's a weekend, it's 5 days. And with Bitcoin, we didn't even make a lightning transaction, like on-chain. Within 22 minutes, the guy said, oh, funds are received. At this point, I have to say, he could have said, new phone, who dis? Like, there's no way to, like... have any remittance. Like he has physical, like he has the Bitcoin, and he could say like, I'm not going to manufacture for you, but we have this deal. Like everybody like wins if he just creates the part, and I just paid the initial deposit for 50, and then within 3 days he showed me a CNC engraved tool of one of these things, like the negative, and by that time no wire transfer would have arrived. Like it's such a time saver, and that is the use case to me. Like it's a global currency, and you can give somebody money within like, less than an hour.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I think what Chris is saying is the financial fiat system is absolutely broken, and Bitcoin fixes this.
I have to say, this packaging, however, is made in Austria. And I've been working with this company with other brands that we own for a long time. He makes 100,000 packages, and this was like, make me 3,000 of these orange packages. And it cost €270, something like these things. And I offered also to pay him in Bitcoin, and he refused. And I said, dude, like I can show you where you can exchange it immediately, like the Bitcoin back into euro if you, or ruble or whatever you want. I just want to have an entire product made in Bitcoin. And he still refused, and I don't get it. Like this was like 2 years ago. And some people have not caught on that Bitcoin is the solution, and does not fix everything, I think, but fixes a lot of things.
Nearly everything. And Chris, I had the same thing. I got an aircon in my studio about a month ago, and I was talking to the electrician and about Bitcoin. He started to get really excited, and I said, I can pay you for the work in Bitcoin. He said, yeah, that sounds good. I'll do a little bit of research and let me look into it. Anyway, he went away. He came back. He put the aircon in. And I said, do you want cash or do you want Bitcoin? He's like, I didn't look into it. I'll just take cash. And I said, I'll pay you in whatever you want. That's your choice. You've done the work. And he wanted cash. I said, that's fine, but please go away and study Bitcoin. And I'm not sure if he has or if he hasn't, but we are seeing so many people work so hard. They're so good at what they do, whether it's manufacturing or a tradesman here, but the money's too complicated. They don't want to hear about it, but they need to know about it because of inflation, the amounts of money printing and stuff. So you guys are a Bitcoin company providing solutions with Bitcoin storage, but why are we even having this conversation? Why is Bitcoin important?
Again, Bitcoin is like, the ultimate scarcity of Bitcoin solves inflation, because inflation is just another tax that the government puts on you that you don't notice because it devalues your money. As you mentioned, there's a lot of handymen, they do good work and they are too busy working with than spending like time to understand the financial system and understand that they're being robbed, because like we used to have like 2% inflation, and even that was probably fake, depending on like what consumer price index you look. And there's this formula. It's quite easy. Like you take 70 and divide it by the inflation, and you arrive at the number of how long it will take until your money is worth half. And you have like 5% inflation, and then in 35 years, 50% of your money is gone. And that's why everything around you gets more expensive. And where do you store your hard-earned money where it does not lose value? Because you need a hard, sound asset. And it used to be like real estate and stuff like that, but you can't move it. You pay property tax, you have to upkeep it. And with all the other products that you can store money in, like gold, like people figure out a way to create more gold. Because if something has any worth, people figure out to make it cheaper and better and more of it. And you can't do that with Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is global, it's decentralized, it's safe, and it's the only cryptocurrency that works. It's like the only reason to have a blockchain. And the more, I mean, you did your job. You gave that handyman one touch point, and you and I, we needed more than one touch point to get into it and to get it. And you sort of become a generalist. You understand like the software aspect, and then the finance aspect, and then all these different things that interplay, and then you realize what a genius invention or discovery Bitcoin is.
It's insane, Chris. My day today is, you're the fifth podcast that I've had on today. I've talked about retirement, like pension plans, about working in Bitcoin, about retirement, about mining. I talked to a guy that wrote a book about Bitcoin. You know, there are so many different touch points. And one of the things that you just said then is it takes us a couple of times. I heard about Bitcoin very clearly when it was $95, and I didn't do anything. I didn't buy it. Like, I wish I did, but I didn't. So what was your Bitcoin journey like? What were the touch points there for you? When did you get into Bitcoin?
So yeah, I had the luxury of getting in really, really early. Like I studied at a technical university. I was surrounded by nerds. One of my best friends back then lost contact since then, but he, like, distinctively I remember we went out partying and I met up at his place. And his place was a mess. He told me, dude, today I made like 2 great discoveries. Like you saw his kitchen sink, it was like a small studio apartment, like it was full with like dishes. And he said, like, if you take a Frisbee and you flip it upside down and you line it with tinfoil and you eat from it, you can just take the tinfoil, throw it away, and you don't have to do dishes. Great invention. Hold on, Chris. One thing. I discovered magic internet money. And he talked about it. And I was like, okay, sure, let's go out partying. And later on, he gave me Bitcoin for free because he was actually mining back then. And I thought, that's great. And then we had like parity with €1 in €1 in 2011. And I actually purchased like a graphics card with a lot of Bitcoin. And I thought, I robbed the bank because I got it for free. It was worth shit. And it took so long to understand that it's not just like to trade like with stuff online or to store it. Yeah. And I lost so much because back then you didn't even have like the recovery seed phrases. You just had JBox. You were not like, nowadays it's really easy to self-custodially store your Bitcoin. And long story short, I don't know where my good friend Phil is now, but I really hope that he, saves his Bitcoin. And when I would have contact with him, like, so shout out, if he sees the video, thank you again for, that great
Thanks,
discovery.
Phil.
And I'm not sure if he sees it, if he thinks maybe I'm talking about the Frisbee, but the other discovery that he made, because it changed my life. And I'm happy that I got somebody. We didn't understand it back then, and it's just like pure coincidence and luck, I think.
Yeah. And I guess, like, getting in so early, you've just sort of touched on it. It's changed so much. It's very easy now. You've come out to be able to store your seed phrase, but then there's self-custody solutions. The seed phrase is just a password to be able to move your Bitcoin around. Everyone watching this already knows that. But how are you linking that up with hardware devices? Do you recommend any hardware device in particular, or hot wallets, or people can back up in whatever way they want with the Seedor? That's great. But how should people actually interact with the blockchain?
So do not keep your Bitcoin on exchanges. That is the one thing I want you to take away from this, because people, like some people need to touch the stuff more than once. Like we had BitGrail, we had Mt. Gox, we had FTX, all those things. Like those are paper Bitcoin, those are IOUs. If you own Bitcoin on an exchange, you don't own it. You only own it if it's in your own custody. And that's the easiest thing to do, is to have a hardware wallet. That is essentially a really dumb computer that only serves one purpose, and because it only has one purpose, there's a very little attack surface. Like if you have a phone or a laptop, there's like no engineer that knows all those different nooks and crannies of the software, because it's so huge. There's background services, there's like updates, but with a really dumb, like what I have here, this is a Bitbox, a Swiss-made hardware wallet, and it's an open source device. There's other open source devices, like there's a Trezor from Czech Republic, there's the Cold Card from the United States. And my suggestion is get a hardware wallet and make sure that the software that it runs is open source, that the supply chain where this is manufactured is also not like compromised. And again, my recommendation would be the Bitbox. If you're in the United States, maybe the Cold Card. If you want a Shamir backup, one of the only ones that supports that is the Trezor. And have a look there, and that is where you keep your Bitcoin safe, and those will give you 12 or 24 words, and these need to be then stored, maybe in steel, maybe give Seedor a look, and yeah, that's my recommendation.
Yeah. Cool. For everyone watching, I reached out to Chris because Seedor is very fascinating in what they're doing. Whether you use Seedor or you buy a bit of stainless steel or whatever off Amazon, please don't keep it on paper. Like if that's the takeaway, whatever it is, however much Bitcoin you hold now, if you hold it long enough, it's going to be worth a lot of money in fiat terms. Do yourself a favor. Don't leave it online. Put it onto steel, and we'll put your links below for everyone. But Chris, being in the space for so long, what do you think, like where do you see Bitcoin heading? Like we always say Bitcoin fixes this, it fixes the world. Earlier you said it may not fix everything, but nearly everything. But collectively, where are we moving as Bitcoiners together? Like we've got all the crypto blow-ups, we've got the BlackRock ETF, we've got Operation Choke Point, Australia's got Choke Point going on, people's retirement accounts are blowing up. How's Bitcoin come into the equation for the new world?
To quote my boy Odell, stay humble, stack sats. Like the world is crazy right now. Like we live in very interesting times. Just work as hard as you can. Find a way to maximize like your earning potential so that you can save in the hardest asset possible. And if you don't know how to code, don't know how to like figure out how you can contribute. Like just today, Evan Kaludis sent me a message because I had a feature request. I can't code, but I use all the wallets. I have all the wallets and all the things on my phone, and I know what I want. I'm a very picky user. And then I just go on the GitHub and have a feature request. And I said, I want to switch currencies because I have to pay people in euro and in dollar denominated, but in Bitcoin. And it's really hard in Zeus to switch currencies. And then I annoyed him long enough. And then he sent me a message, is this button fine? I'm like, yes, I want this button. And now he puts it in. So if you want to see this grow, talk to as many people that you know about Bitcoin. Don't be pushy because you're not going to convince people with like, oh, you have to invest now. But ask smart questions. Have you ever noticed how shit gets more expensive
Yeah.
and do banks suck? And you know how like the school system is broken. Imagine the financial system. Like those are really good arguments. And then
Yeah.
continue from there, and then yeah, expose yourself to the community. Go to meetups. Go to, like you had Bitcoin Alive in Sydney. Like meet other Bitcoiners, and maybe there's some synergy. How you can help each other, and then we will be like ever growing. There's this network effect. It's always like slowly in the beginning, and then we reach a critical mass, and then it will be blowing up, similar to all the other technologies out there before.
Yeah, and for anyone watching, if you have any question, just ask. Like any Bitcoiner is happy to talk about Bitcoin non-stop. Like I've spent 5 hours on video calls today talking Bitcoin, and it's not long enough. Like all I want to do is talk about Bitcoin all day, ask questions about Bitcoin. So don't feel afraid or scared to reach out to people, and then just have a conversation. Maybe you'll learn something, maybe you won't. Chris, what do you reckon some of the biggest learnings have been for you with Bitcoin? And not necessarily about Bitcoin, but for me, when I learned about Bitcoin, I realized that the money was broken. Like you said, everything's costing more. And then I found out what sound money means. That's my biggest lesson. But what's your biggest lesson learning about Bitcoin?
That's a very good question. The biggest lesson. Like Bitcoin teaches that every human on this earth can get along, that we're all the same, that it's not me against you, it's Team Orange versus Team Green. Because there's a class that exploits honest labor by having this broken financial system. And what we finance and fund with being still part of the fiat system is horrendous. Like if you read like the writings of Alex Gladstein or the Human Rights Foundation, all those things, we now, in the first time in history, we have a way to opt out. We can opt out of this fiat scam. And this realization to me, that blew my mind. And it's like the most peaceful form of protest. Like in Germany right now, I sympathize with people that are afraid, like the final last generation, like they glue themselves to street. I sympathize with them, but it's the wrong form of protest. It's so much easier to make your like voice heard, just opt out, like just save in Bitcoin and like become ungovernable. That's my takeaway.
Awesome. And so talking about that, are you running a node or any Bitcoin mining yourself personally? Because that's the next evolution, isn't it?
I'm not running personally. Like with TerraHash, there's a couple of miners running, but I run several nodes and run a node. Like it's so easy nowadays. Like it used to be really hard, like Bitcoin Core sucks. But nowadays, like there's so many ways. Like you can buy a Raspberry Pi, or you go online, get an old laptop, and just have something that does nothing other than decentralize the best asset and help make it secure. And then you can run your own payments through there. And then on top, you can start a Lightning channel. And then you have like custodial Bitcoin Lightning. Like that's the next step. Like there's all these different things. And again, you talk to people, learn about it. All the information is free out there. And people, as you may have noticed, we really like to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking this morning at 7:30, so like hours ago, 8 hours ago or something, to Piers from MineRacks, who's your like Australian distributor for the Seedor. But in the conversation, ladies and gentlemen, that video is already out. I'll link it at the end for you watching. But I said, mate, we need to do a video. I'll fly down to Brisbane. This was the conversation after we went live and talking. And we're going to sit there and we're going to build a node together. And he said, it only takes half an hour. It's very easy. It's very cheap. So I look forward to doing that because I know that's the next thing that I need to do. And Australia, like Germany, is very, very expensive to mine Bitcoin. Like very expensive. It's probably not very profitable unless you're using it to suck up excess energy, stranded energy, or something maybe like a private solar farm that's not connected to the grid. But he's doing some cool things like heating pools, sort of like what you guys are doing, as well as using the heat from the miners, and instead of heating up the room, use the heat and then you earn a little bit of money back there. So like you're saying, you can go anywhere with Bitcoin. That sort of has so many touch points there. What do you think is next for you guys as a company? Like you've got a lot going on, but what are your dreams for yourself, Chris?
So trying to orange pill as many people as possible. That's what I've been doing for quite some time, and now we're trying to make it more professional, because where we want to go, we have to take everybody with us, and I'm doing this already, figuring out for businesses how to put Bitcoin into their balance and how to store it properly with like different multi-sig or threshold schemes. And all these things, they used to be really hard. We had like different ways of doing it, and like multi-sig is broken in so many ways, but like it's moving along, and trying to educate people about like upcoming things like Frost and all these stuff, the great things that we can do with Taproot, where it's much easier to have like, because you have Bitcoin, I have Bitcoin. If you have a multi-sig, whose Bitcoin are those? It's like the consensus between us. And in a company, it's all they have to think about. Like, there's 3 decision makers, and 2 of 3 suffice. But what happens if one loses the key, or you want to exchange the scheme? And is it an out-of-band communication, or do you have to do like a on-chain blockchain transaction? It's quite difficult, and this only will get easier in the future. And that's what I'm working on right now with my business partner Ihan, trying to orange pill businesses.
Yeah, that's so awesome, and I think that's every Bitcoiner's mission. Is you learn so much about it, you understand Bitcoin does fix nearly everything, so we want other people to be able to understand what we've put the time and the energy into. I have never heard, and this is because I'm ignorant and the Bitcoiners are probably going to come after me, but what is Frost as part of Taproot?
Okay, that is a whole nother episode. So it's you know Shamir backups?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So like with multi-sig,
Yeah.
you take, it's an n of n, you have like different public keys, you need all the public keys and then only certain private keys to sign that you've defined beforehand. And you can share a PSBT, previously a partially signed Bitcoin transaction in a different way, and then sign it. With Shamir, you have a secret that you split without reducing the entropy, the difficulty to brute force it. And the problem with that is, however, that to bring to spend those Bitcoin, you have to bring it back together, and then you have that one secret that can spend all your Bitcoin on one device. So there's like a crucial, like in this process, there's like these points of failure. And Frost is a combination of those things. You can have a shared secret where nobody at once has the secret, but you can rotate out certain keys afterwards. And it's like a new scheme. People are working on it. It's not live yet, but you can test on Signet, and it's like the next thing. So Frost is an abbreviation, and yeah. So go on. I made a meme about it on Seedor. Like, that's most of my time what I do. Like, I try to make a meme every day. Some of them are really cringe. Some of them are really educational, as I do say so. And it's all explained there. So go on our Twitter and check out those memes.
Yeah. For anyone that isn't following you already, I've linked your Twitter below in the description for everyone. I guess Bitcoin, it literally brings the best and the brightest minds in the entire world together. You know, you've got like an engineering background, other people will have coding backgrounds, and then if everyone's working at what they're good at, it's the reason why Bitcoin's going to win, in my opinion, because it brings back hope. But everyone around the world is incentivized to make this the best thing that it can possibly be. And together, collectively, we've made the best form of money that's ever existed. You know, you need to say thank you very much to Satoshi Nakamoto. So thanks very much, Adam Back, for creating Bitcoin. We appreciate what you've done there for the world, mate.
I thought it was an Australian guy called Craig Wright. Hang on, no.
There's we can all go home now. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, Craig Wright is just he is, I don't know how to say it nicely, he's a piece of shit. He's a scammer. If you don't even waste your time, don't even bother searching. He will just fill your head with absolute nonsense and noise. Yes. Definitely no signal.
A lot of people build Bitcoin, like Satoshi put that stone like rolling, and then since then like the code has grown so much, and there's so many bright people, and there's so many discussions which Bitcoin improvement proposal we're gonna like soft fork next or add next, and it's like such a breadth of really talented people working on there, and it's like, yeah, definitely not Craig.
And Bitcoin gives everyone or anyone the opportunity to be able to participate. If you're running a node, you can vote on things like this. You can actively participate in the building, the way that Bitcoin is developed, because it's a tool for everyone, but not for a single person. Nobody can create more Bitcoin. No single individual, company, entity, country can take control of the network. So the largest decentralized computer network in the world, it's pretty exciting stuff as we progress going forward. Chris, what do you think Bitcoin is lacking?
It's lacking you. And I'm talking to the audience now. Like, you need to, as you said, run a node, because not your keys, not your coin, but also not your rig, not your hash, and not your node, not your rules. As a node operator, you decide what kind of Bitcoin software you want to run. What is, in your opinion, what is Bitcoin? You need to participate, so you are missing. And if you think you're doing enough already, no, you're not. Do more.
Get to work, yeah. And ask questions, I guess, is probably a big takeaway for everyone watching. Like, Chris was easy as for me to reach out, and I wanted to have a conversation because I'm curious about these things that happen, and that's why I have these conversations, because Chris will know something that I don't know, or Pierre's will know something about mining that Chris doesn't know. And when we stack all these conversations collectively, Bitcoin gets better, but we get better. And as we get better, Bitcoin gets better. And then it's just a self-perpetuating cycle that continues to get better. And the fiat Ponzi system is totally broken. So we do need this to work. And I would say it is already working as well. Chris, what I'd like to do is I've put all your links below for everyone, the website, they can check it out. Chris, the development in Bitcoin, this conversation's been amazing. The space is always growing. But as a key takeaway, what do people need to do after hearing this conversation?
Get your keys off exchanges, because the more people take their keys from Binance, the sooner we'll arrive at the real value of Bitcoin. Because if there's all these paper Bitcoin being traded, the actual Bitcoin price can't be really determined. And there's only ever going to be 21 million, but if you leave it on exchange, maybe there's 35 million Bitcoin, and just purchase them wherever you want. I mean, there's a lot of non-KYC options like HODL and RoboSats, and take it into your custody, and then, yeah, nobody can manipulate the price anymore.